of the Freestyle Fridays, right? David, if I'm not mistaken, on his victory to championship?
Possibly.
Maybe chat will confirm that.
A memory test. You didn't need to know you were in for one of those today, were you? Huh?
Yeah,
well, I could be wrong as well.
It's fast action there. The Blitz games, of course, but a very different arena now. Longer time format. This is 10-minute chess for those of you just joining us. And, of course, over the board adds a whole new dynamic. We saw Vidic crack under the prolonged pressure from Magnus in the previous game. And Magnus, against this younger generation, tends to do extremely well, tends to bring his best. And in the meantime, Magnus fighting fiery chess here, pushing a pawn forward in front of one of his knights there. Wow, is this a pawn sacrifice, Tanya? He's aiming to open diagonals. He's aiming to blow open the position early on in the game.
Well, that pawn that Magnus has just moved forward is not defended. So Arjun can just pick it up, and Magnus wants to get his pieces out quickly. So very often top players do that to get activity, to start sort of not waste time and start putting pressure on the pawn that would just capture the f5 pawn. If it's taken and Arjun goes for it, he takes the bait, expecting Magnus to kind of develop with energy now, bring that knight out, start attacking white's pieces. This is him playing for the initiative. And I want to call David on one of the things that he said in this previous game with Magnus, right? It just played out like that, that Magnus will force Vidit in a position where he has to take just one decision and he won't have enough time, and the game will come down to that. And it was essentially a one-move checkmate that eventually that Vidit fell into.
Yeah, the grindmaster, Magnus Carlsen.
Grind like a grandmaster.
Yeah, this is just how he does it. He tests his opponents, he narrows the path. Often he gives you 5 or 6 logical moves. Then he'll give you 3 or 4. Then he'll give you 1 or 2. Eventually it comes to only move territory. And that's where the players crack. He likes to prolong the battles. And he calls it anti-young player chess sometimes, Magnus Carlsen. He doesn't like that early confrontation. But here, sacrificing a pawn, it is getting dramatic already.
Yeah,
and
quite so.
And Arjun's not giving up that pawn back so easily. You know, both knights have come to the center of the board. Magnus was hitting that pawn. Arjun keeps it safe. So currently, he does have an extra pawn in the position. And Magnus just wants to open up diagonals. He just wants to get pieces into the game as quickly as possible. He's making his intentions pretty clear. He wants a dynamic position. He wants to play in Arjun's territory. Arjun's known for these kind of chaotic middle games, these chaotic ideas where you give up pawns for piece activity. And Magnus wants to play in Arjun's home ground here.
Yeah, and so Magnus making things interesting quite early on in this round, making his opponent think, as we would...
There we have it.
Yeah, here we see both players deep in thought. It looks like Arjun Erigaisi is down on the clock, a rare sight for him. He's normally the speediest player in town. And yeah, it looks like he's got around 4 minutes. Magnus up at 6 minutes plus. Magnus liking to keep a time advantage against his younger compatriots. And this is a wild position, Tanya. Arjun Erigaisi with an extra pawn. There's crazy tension between the white queen and this bishop in the corner. All sorts of pins. Magnus sacrificed early. What do you think is going on?
Yeah, nobody knows. And I mean, you know, this is Arjun's style of play. This is just what he does. He's icy cool. He's got nerves of steel when it comes to these chaotic positions. And that tension that you were talking about, the queen and the bishop with a stare off against each other, it's voluntarily created by Arjun in that last move. He just pushed that pawn one step forward. And essentially, for now, at least, he's spinning the black rook. And he's saying it's not really easy for Magnus to defend the bishop. You don't want to bring your knight, you don't want to retreat your knight to a square where it becomes a piece that's coming in its own way, in the way of its own pieces. Magnus, of course, doesn't do that. He gets his king to safety. He wants to move that light squared bishop away, get that bishop defended, but it's a mistake. Look at the evaluation bar. Arjun has a huge advantage. Can he put pressure on that rook and win material here?
Yeah, Arjun set up a threat with his last move, utilizing this pin, and the threat was to jump the knight forward to this square. Knight into g4, attacks the rook in the center of the board. The rook cannot move, as the bishop in the corner would fall, and it's a sacrifice. I think it's a willing sacrifice from Magnus. He's probably...
just going to slide his rook over and replace it, or what?
Yeah, he's probably planned to just defend his rook and just continue the game, but also the white bishop is coming into the center of the board. I don't know if Magnus has miscalculated or misevaluated something, but knight to g4 is the key idea.
It's coming. And there it is.
Yeah.
Was it a miss? Or does Magnus have a deeper idea here? Because it does appear to be a bit of a blunder right now, right? You can't move that rook. You're losing the bishop. White doesn't need to rush with taking the rook. To your idea, James, White can also triple down on that central rook once the bishop lands on the center square. And Magnus not rushing with his response. David, to me, it looks like he might have just missed this.
Yeah, Magnus's face is a bit of a giveaway. This is the kind of stance he adopts on the camera that we see right now when he has missed something or is starting to panic internally. Will we see a shake of the head? That normally tends to come next. Bit of a grimace. He takes a pawn. This is a full piece sacrifice. He's moving his rook out the way, but now this bishop can be captured in the corner pretty safely. There is a discovered attack. The black bishop jumps out the way now, attacking this white queen. And my question is, what happens if the white queen just retreats, retires back to any safe square on this diagonal? Magnus has only got one pawn for the bishop he's just lost. It's not enough.
There goes for another sip of water.
This is unbelievable. And you know, this reminds me of a game Arjun played against Magnus in India, Tata Steel Chess India. And Magnus bungled it up completely in the opening, and Arjun won in just 20 moves. He beat Magnus in just 20 moves, and right now it looks like Magnus once again is in big trouble, this time freestyle chess, but still out of the opening. He's got these two pawns. It's far from over. But this is not what Magnus was aiming for out of the opening.
Yeah, might be looking to set his own new personal record for himself against Magnus. Only 10 moves into this game here, and already with a very decisive advantage. Still needs to convert, though. And of course, Magnus, of all players, is one that you cannot count out until the handshake is given at the conclusion of the match.
Oh, Arjun Erigaisi starts off with a win against Fabiano Caruana, about to add a win against Magnus Carlsen to his collection already. He's looking like the person to beat. Freestyle Friday, crushing it there. Maybe this is his format. He's so aggressive. He sets these problems so early, as you said, knocking out Magnus in 20 moves in kind of traditional chess here. After 10 moves, a winning advantage. Wow, incredible. Who would have expected this to be this strong this early?
Incredible stuff. And again, it comes down to Arjun's core strengths, right? It is all about these non-conventional patterns that Arjun's able to see very easily. He has this incredible ability to create an absolute mess on the board, but stay completely calm and find these... It's almost like he's learned chess and then he unlearns it every single game, and you see these new patterns emerge when Arjun Erigaisi is playing. And that's such an asset to have when you're playing freestyle chess. For Arjun, he's right now got a piece, but Magnus has managed to snap up one more pawn. That's 3 extra pawns. Oh, wow. And the arrow appears. David, you're pointing out tactics galore.
Tactics galore. Arjun can win a pawn in the position right now, utilizing 2 pins. Is he going to play this move? There's a pin on the C file against the black king, a pin on the A file against the black queen. He's going to play it.
Yeah, will he see it?
He's about to make a long-range move.
He sees everything. That's not even a question with Arjun. The thing is, does he like it?
It's like he's trying to pull the ideas out of his brain there with the hands, and instead he goes for the knight. It will jump in, and so while Arjun still needs to find his way to victory here against Magnus to have a blistering 2-0 start to his round robin here in Paris, France, we have plenty of other boards to check in with, and I want
a whole rook up. Magnus has 2 pawns in return for the rook. But he's had to give up even more material, Magnus, just to fend off the initial wave of attack and to establish at least a strong pawn center. But pawn centers are one thing, Tanya. Just extra rook is another thing completely. The rook's about to activate.
That's massive material advantage, right? What Magnus is relying on is somehow to trick Arjun in this position. He wants to get a blunder out of him. It's the only way to save. To try to get his queen and knight to come together to put pressure against Arjun's king. But notice how that bishop, it takes away a key jumping square for that knight to really end up putting pressure. And Arjun's just playing slowly. When you can make a move like the one that he just did, a simple 1-pawn push forward, controlling everything. Arjun saying, I'm not scared of any attack. I don't see any attack in this position. I've got extra material, and I think Magnus knows that this is close to just being over. I don't know, is he giving up right now, David? What's going on in his mind?
Oh, I don't think he'll give up yet. Internally, he'll know, though, that there's maybe a 2%, 1% chance he's going to save this game, Magnus. He needs a bit of a miracle, which, I don't know, just looks so unlikely against an informed player like Arjun.
Where does that miracle even come from in a position like that? That's the thing. You're down a rook. How do you create the threats against the white king? You can't start advancing those central pawns because you end up weakening your own pawn. White's bishop will get extremely active on the diagonal if that d pawn was to move one step forward. perhaps you can highlight it, or we're not going to see that happen. But it's such a big problem for Magnus to even start creating actual threats on the board.
Yeah, I see one blunder if the white king steps across into the center. The white queen is not defended, so there would be a bishop takes pawn check, and the white queen would drop off. Loose pieces do tend to be the downfall in any tactical skirmish, but yeah, of course, Arjun's not going to blunder.
I was going to say, the speed at which you're able to find that tells me they will find it as well.
Yeah.
Queen's just going to slide over here for Magnus in defense. And so again, Arjun Erigaisi on the brink of being 2-0 for his tournament start, but we have had one result already, and so we're going to hop back over just real quick to get an action replay on how it all broke down. Vincent Keimer actually manages to...
Tesh struggling against Vachier Legrave, potentially. And yeah, I think this is the game we have to focus on because Magnus is making his final play, his final tricks in the air. He's just taken a pawn, sacrificing the Black Knight, and he's hoping to have some counterplay against Arjun's king.
Yeah.
And that would happen if Arjun was to snap that knight back up, but he also has the option to trade the queens, but that's not Arjun. He's taken the bait. He does open the king up to a few checks, and Magnus trying to put pressure on Arjun's clock as well. The queen and the rook lined up to put attack, to put some pressure. There are checks coming in on that d3 square as well. There are a few moves that Arjun will have to be careful, but he is still completely winning in this position.
Retreating the bishop wins on the spot, traps the queen, stops any checks, and Arjun finds it.
Wow.
Magnus is about to resign. Look at that. There we go. Handshake. Arjun takes the win.
Well, and so far, your prediction is coming true. 3 decisive victories with 3 games left to play. But my goodness, for Arjun Erigaisi, the only 3-time winner of Freestyle Fridays, and to do it in consecutive fashion, he comes out and shows his form here on day number 1.